Does this guy look like he's got rapport and bedside manner? I mean, you know.
Yeah. All of these cases where you just get on the intercom, I mean, you're usually silent.
Right. So are you talking about the lack or the quality of the public announcements?
Hey guys,
Yeah.
this is totally fine.
Okay.
That would go such a long way.
I'm a firm believer in that. And for myself, I was early in my airline career, back in the early 80s, and I had an opportunity to ride on another airline, and I saw a captain before we pushed back from the gate on a 727 in those days, long airplane, and he literally walked all the way to the back greeting people and went back up before we pushed back. I had never seen anybody do that, and I was impressed. I wanted to do that. I wanted to incorporate that into my own behavior, but I was the first officer, which is the number 2 in charge, so I didn't want the guy that I'm flying with think that I'm uppity or anything like that. So that gave me an excuse for the first 10 years of my career. Then I upgraded to captain, and now I got the public speaking thing. That's kind of corny, you know, people think you're, you know. But 9/11 came along, and I thought, you know, my first flight, we didn't fly for 4 days. Not an airplane moved in the United States. And then when I went back that first time, I had 4 people going from Phoenix to Iowa. I can't believe I forgot. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Des Moines. And I thought, this would be a good time to practice this because nobody will remember me if I fall on my face. And I did that, and it was fun, and I did that for the rest of my career. Every time before we shut the door, I would walk back there. I had the timing on everything, and you can't even in a 737-300. It's still fairly long, so you got to repeat yourself 3 times because not everybody's going to hear you back there. And it was the most fun. It reinvented my job, and it's what I really miss about flying. As talking to the people beforehand. Because by that time I'd had about 15 years of working with people like you all, and I knew how anxious people were in the back there. And the first time I ever did it, the flight attendant came up, and at first she said, "What the hell did you do back there?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm in big trouble." And she said, "No," she said, "everybody is just so relaxed now. It just put a calm on everybody." And it was fun, and it was engaging, and that's what I did.
I want to add, this is very important. For example, to me, the captain will reassure us.
Sure.
And also the TSA. From the minute you walk toward the TSA, they yell at people, and they create a lot of tension even before you get to the gate.
Right.
So if the whole crew, from
Right.
the TSA to the flight attendant to the captain, will be more reassuring, more calm.
Yeah, yeah.
That will, personally, it will take my fear out. When I know, like, oh, okay, the people who care about me, not just like robotic and yelling or don't care.
Yeah, and we had the same issues that you do before we went through the known crew member thing and got to bypass that. And it was pointed out to us, these people are law enforcement, they're not customer service. And that carries a little bit of weight with me, but still, I've always been a firm believer that if you don't like the job or you're grumpy, you know, you need to get something else, find something else to do. But I have noticed, in defense of them, I have noticed in the last 5 years, I've noticed a few people, particularly the ones that when you get randomly checked and they got to go through your bag in detail on it, I found them to be more comfortable. I joke with pretty much everybody, but I joke with them. I said, you know, I don't want to know how to tell you this, but I saw somebody writing you up because you were smiling a little while ago. And they appreciate it. And I have actually written letters to their supervisors and send it. There's a system. So I try to catch people doing something right. That's why, again, I recommend that you meet the pilot. You need to train your pilot. And there's 2 ways to do that. One is before the flight, you go on and say, "I'm a little nervous about flying. Anything you can help me or tell me about the flight, I would appreciate." And then let's say you have a bad experience. You have a lot of turbulence somewhere and it freaks you out, you know. Or maybe it just makes you really nervous. It doesn't freak you out. Then when you get done, you go up there and as you're waiting to get out, there's usually one or both pilots up there somewhere in the cockpit or whatever. And you, again, just be polite and say, "Hey, have you got a minute for a question?" And then when you get a chance to talk to them, say, "You know, back there I was scared to death. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Were we in any danger?" You need to debrief right there. That's what I would love to have seen happen for you when you got off the airplane. If you'd had somebody there that you could have debriefed with, because that's the perfect time to do it. Because what happens if you don't get to do that? It magnifies in your mind, and now it becomes really problematic the next time because now you've had a failure. You know.
Will they allow it? Because one time I was very, very scared. We were traveling a year and a half ago, and I talked to the flight attendant. She's like, "If you're nervous, you can leave." That's what she offered me.
Yeah.
And
And
I think that was rude.
Right,
instead of,
right.
you know,
And back to answer the question about the pilot and the PAs, okay? The things that make a pilot a good pilot, generally speaking, are their attention to detail and their task orientation. And it's almost at the expense of their people skills. Talk to their ex-wives, they'll tell you, right? Okay? So, and I'm not, again, not explaining or justifying it, I'm just explaining it, you know? But the more you can do with that to feed back with them and say, you know, I would like to have had more information when that happened. Tell them, because that is, if anything will change their behavior, that'll do it. And because I was involved in two roles through my career, one was here from 1987, working with people like you, I learned so much about fear of flying, and it really is a customer service issue to me. And at the same time, I was teaching human factors, which is something we'll talk about more in the advanced course. I was learning more about, and I was talking to all the pilots in recurrent. What I would do is I would give them tips. I would say, whenever you make a PA following a go-around or a balked landing or things like that, as soon as we don't want you to sacrifice aircraft control, right? We want you to do your job. But as soon as you have an opportunity, one of you needs to say something, and make sure that you close the remarks with something reassuring. A typical example is, you know, when the pilots come on and they say, I've asked the flight attendants to discontinue service and take their seats. What do you think? Oh my God, this is the big one, Elizabeth, right? You're sure you're going to die, okay? What they need to do is say, the reason we're doing this is because we want the flight attendants strapped in and secure in their seats. It's not going to be the end of the flight. It's just going to be a time when we don't want them free in the back to bounce around, because that's how people get hurt in an airplane, from bouncing around and not being secured. Anytime you see an injury due to turbulence, you can rest assured that the person who was injured, or persons, was not securely fastened in their seatbelt. That's how you get hurt in an airplane, and you get hurt badly in an airplane, okay?
And the crews are getting much, much better about it, much better communicators and trained for it, to answer that question. But in a way, you're kind of wired for that, or you're not. You're an introvert process person, and we used to joke about people turning around when the passengers would come up, and they'd go, well, who are you? Well, we've been following you. You have? And so that was, but that's a little more old school.